There are people in our lives who see what we cannot see, not because they are wiser in every way, but because they love us without agenda, and love, when it is honest, has a clarity that pride and excitement cannot match. We do not always listen, and sometimes we learn why we should have. His name was Tariq, 26 years old, a web developer working remotely for a small tech startup, living in a rented studio apartment in Port Harcourt. He was the kind of young man who moved quietly through the world, not shy exactly, but thoughtful. He did not speak unless he had something to say. He kept a small circle and preferred it that way. His mother, Mrs. Almaki, lived 20 minutes away in the family home where Tariq had grown up. She was a retired school teacher, the kind of woman who had spent 30 years watching young people make avoidable mistakes and had developed, over time, a particular sensitivity to the early signs of trouble. She and Tariq were close in the way that some mothers and sons are close, not through long conversations or grand gestures, but through a steady, reliable presence. She cooked extra portions on Sundays and sent them with his younger sister when she passed his side of town. He called her every few days, not because he had to, but because it felt wrong not to. She trusted his judgment. He trusted hers, until the year he turned 26, and a business opportunity arrived that made him feel, for the first time, that he was finally about to step into the life he had been waiting for. The opportunity came through a friend named Sochi. Sochi was the kind of person who always had something happening, a deal forming, a connection to be made, a plan in motion. He and Tariq had grown up on the same street and had kept in touch through the years, though they had moved in different directions. Sochi called one evening with excitement in his voice. He had a business partner, he said, a man named Mr. Haruna, who ran an investment group. The group was pooling funds from young professionals and investing in real estate and commodity trading. The returns, Sochi said, were 30% every 3 months. Tariq was quiet on the phone. 30% every 3 months. 30% every 3 months. He did his own rough calculation. If he invested his savings 350,000 naira, everything he had set aside over 2 careful years, he could nearly double it before the end of the year. He met Mr. Haruna once at a modest office in GRA. The man was well-dressed, soft-spoken, and had printed documents and figures laid out on the table. He spoke about the market with confidence. He showed Tariq photographs of properties and signed agreements. Everything looked professional. Everything looked real. Tariq came home that evening and told his mother. Mrs. Almaki listened to the whole thing without interrupting. When he finished, she was quiet for a moment. Then she said, Tariq, where is this man registered? Have you seen his business with your own eyes? Have you spoken to anyone else who has collected their returns? Tariq said Sochi had vouched for him. His mother said, Sochi is your friend, but Sochi is not always careful. She did not shout. She did not forbid him. She simply said, please, take your time with this one. What is fast is not always good. Tariq told her he understood. But the truth was, he had already made up his mind. He invested the money 2 weeks later. He did not tell his mother immediately. He told himself he was waiting until he had good news to share, that he would present her with the returns and she would see that he had been right to trust his instincts. The first month passed quietly. Mr. Haruna sent occasional voice messages through Sochi, assuring investors that everything was on track. Tariq felt the particular confidence of someone who believes they have made a smart decision, but when the 3-month mark arrived, there were no returns. Sochi sent a message saying there had been a delay, a banking issue, a processing backlog. Another 2 weeks, he promised. Tariq waited. 2 weeks became a month. Mr. Haruna's office number stopped connecting. His WhatsApp profile picture disappeared. Sochi, who had been easy to reach before, began to respond slowly, then barely at all. It was during this time that Tariq's mother called him on a Tuesday morning, an ordinary call, just checking in, and heard something different in his voice. Are you all right? She asked. He said he was fine. She said, Tariq, just his name. But she said it in the way that only a mother can, with the full weight of knowing. He was quiet for a long time, and then he told her everything. His mother did not say I told you so, or the warning she had offered quietly and without pressure. She did not remind him of the conversation in her sitting room or the questions she had asked. She said none of it. What she said was, Come home. He drove to her house that evening and sat at the kitchen table where he had sat as a boy. She put a plate of food in front of him and sat across from him, and they really talked for the first time in months. She asked him what options he had. She asked whether Sochi had also lost money. She asked whether he had any documentation, the printed agreements from that first meeting. He did. His mother, who had once been a school teacher and understood the importance of paperwork, told him to gather everything. She knew someone, a former student who now worked as a legal aid, who might be able to advise him on next steps. It was not a guarantee. It was not a rescue. But it was a direction, offered with steady hands when everything else felt unsteady. Tariq sat in his mother's kitchen and felt the particular grief of a mistake that cannot be undone, only managed. He was not angry at Sochi. Not really. He was not even angry at Mr. Haruna. Not yet. He was mostly quiet with himself, sitting with the memory of his mother's voice asking careful questions, and his own voice brushing past them with confidence. What is fast is not always good. He heard it now the way he had not heard it then. The full amount was never recovered. That is the honest version of this story. Some of it came back, through pressure applied with the legal aid's help, and through Sochi, who had also been deceived and worked to make partial amends. But the larger portion was gone, absorbed into a scheme that had quietly collapsed, leaving many young people with the same hollow feeling in their chests. Tariq started again, slowly, carefully, the way he had built his savings the first time, 1 month at a time, one decision at a time. He also changed something about how he listened. Not just to his mother, though he never again treated her counsel like a gentle inconvenience, but to himself, to the small hesitations that had existed even before her warning, the questions he had pushed aside because excitement was louder. He began to understand that wisdom is not always found in books or experience. Sometimes it lives in the voice of someone who has watched the world longer than you have, and who loves you enough to slow you down. A year later, he sat with his mother on a Sunday and told her he had started saving again. She nodded. She did not say much, but as he was leaving, she held his hand for a moment at the door. "You are a good son," she said, "even when you are stubborn." He laughed, the first real laugh in a long time. There is a particular confidence that comes with being young and capable. It tells you that you see clearly, that you have done your research, that the people who urge caution simply do not understand the opportunity the way you do. Sometimes that confidence is right. But sometimes, and this is the part we do not always want to hear, the person asking the slow, careful questions is not trying to hold you back. They are trying to protect something you have not yet learned to protect yourself. Tariq's mother did not have financial expertise. She could not read Mr. Haruna's documents better than her son. What she had was something quieter and more difficult to measure: the long knowledge of how people behave, how schemes feel, how eagerness can make a person see what they want to see. She offered it gently. He heard it and chose not to hold it. The price was real. The lesson was expensive. But here is what is also true. He came home. He sat at the table. He let himself be helped. And that the ability to return, to be honest, to begin again, is its own kind of wisdom. We will not always listen when we should, but we can choose, after the cost has been counted, to become the kind of person who listens better. That choice is always still available.